As companies look for new ways to innovate and deliver customer value, it's critical that they take advantage of the latest technologies and modernize outdated systems. As they modernize, they're dropping old guard commercial databases and experiencing database freedom by migrating to AWS database services. Hello, and welcome to this Zoom webcast titled Migrating Databases to AWS, brought to you by AWS, TekStream, and IDG. My name's Tom Schmidt, Digital Content Director at IDG's Strategic Marketing Services, and I'll be the host of today's webcast. Joining me is Troy Allen, Vice President of Cloud Services at TekStream. Troy is responsible for TekStream's strategic business solutions built on Oracle technologies, including Oracle's platform as a service offerings and web center technologies. Hello, Troy.
Hey, hello everybody. Thanks for joining us and looking forward to speaking with you about migrating your databases.
Excellent. Also joining me is Ravi Madhabhushanam, Solutions Architect for Databases at Amazon Web Services. Ravi has more than 15 years of experience with cloud solutions and Oracle technologies, and more than 6 years of experience architecting solutions on AWS technologies. Welcome, Ravi.
Hello, everyone. Glad to be here.
And also please welcome Hardik Desai, Technical Architect and Team Lead at TekStream. As a web center content architect, he's developed complex end-to-end solutions involving Oracle Web Center content, Oracle Universal Content Management, Oracle Web Content Management Technologies, and Oracle Database. Hello, Hardik.
Hello, everyone. Glad to be here.
Ravi and Troy, you're going to be discussing the most important decision points of an Oracle database migration today. Let's get started.
Hello, everyone. Let's get started with the introduction to Amazon Relational Database Services first. Over the next few slides, we'll understand what exactly is Amazon Relational Database Service, what are the options available, and a highlight of some of the features. Then Troy will walk us through some detailed conversation around that. Relational databases are complex. Since the beginning of Amazon.com, we have run some of the world's largest and busiest production relational databases. So we understand how expensive and complex it can be to manage database administrative functions, including regular patching cycles, security updates, performance optimization, and backup and disaster recovery operations. This is much more harder for constantly changing applications. Adapting these operations to the cloud also requires new skills and training. Amazon RDS was first released back in 2009 with MySQL engine, and we added many more database engines over a period of time. So what exactly is a managed database service? With a fully managed AWS database service, you don't need to worry about administrative tasks such as server provisioning, patching, setup, configuration, backups, or recovery. AWS continuously monitors your clusters to keep your workloads up and running with self-healing storage and automated scaling, so that you can focus on higher value application development tasks such as schema design, query construction and optimization, and providing more value to your business developers, while leaving AWS to take care of operational tasks on your behalf. You never have to over or under provision the infrastructure to accommodate your application growth, intermittent spikes, and any performance requirements, and incur fixed capital cost, which includes software licensing and support, hardware refresh activities, and resources to support that hardware. AWS does it all for you so you can spend time innovating and building new applications, not managing infrastructure. At AWS, we call it undifferentiated heavy lifting. Let's take a closer look at Amazon RDS. Amazon RDS was built by AWS as a way to help customers reduce the complexity in supporting critical transactional applications by making it easy to set up, operate, and scale a relational database in the cloud. RDS automates time-consuming administration tasks such as hardware provisioning, setup, patching, and backups, while providing cost efficiency and reusable capacity. It frees you to focus on your application so you can give them the fast performance, high availability, and security. RDS is available on several instance types with varying levels of compute and memory capacity, optimized for memory, performance, and I/O, and provides you with 6 familiar database engines to choose from. We have commercial engines like Oracle and SQL Server, open source variants like MySQL, PostgreSQL, and MariaDB, and also our own Amazon Aurora, which is compatible with MySQL and PostgreSQL. Amazon Aurora is a cloud-native database offering that we have built ground up, which provides MySQL and PostgreSQL compatibility layers. Let's take a quick peek into top features of Amazon RDS for Oracle. If we try to categorize them into 4 buckets, from an administration standpoint, Amazon RDS for Oracle provides you with managed infrastructure. You can create an environment in minutes compared to days and weeks that you would otherwise spend for on-prem environments. It provides you easier manageability of functions through parameter groups and option groups, and provides an easy-to-use web console to manage this environment. We also have CLI, SDK, and CloudFormation options to automate these operations. From an administration standpoint, we also provide you the ability to perform major and minor version upgrades with a single API call. From a security and compliance standpoint, we have a few features, starting with virtual private cloud. You can launch a database instance in a virtual private cloud in your account so that it can only be accessed by you. From an encryption standpoint, you can perform encryption at rest and encryption in transit using both native AWS features as well as Oracle transparent data encryption, and perform audit on all database operations and CloudTrail APIs. We also provide you the ability to integrate your database with Active Directory via Kerberos authentication. Availability and durability is a key aspect when it comes to a managed database service. We provide high availability through multi-availability zone-based deployments, automatic host replacement in case of any issues, and also automated failover as needed. We also automate the backup process, and all backups are automatically stored on a durable storage Amazon S3. You can also enable cross-region disaster recovery using cross-region read replicas, which are powered by Oracle Active Data Guard. And also, you can perform automatic snapshot copy to other regions. Finally, for performance and scalability, we have multiple options for instance types and also storage in terms of GP2 and I/O for provisioned IOPS based storage modules. You can scale storage up to 64 terabyte, and for higher performance, you can add more read replicas to perform read scaling both in region as well as cross region. And we also provide a unique feature, performance insights, for all RDS engines to gain additional visibility into database operations. With that, I'll turn it over to Troy to walk us through the next slides.
Thank you, Ravi. So as Ravi indicated, there's quite a bit of feature functionality that is available with the Amazon RDS for Oracle. And as we look at migrating databases from on-premise or colo data centers to the cloud, there's quite a bit that you want to understand and have insights to make that migration as successful as possible. So in the next few slides, we're going to be going over some information in general that you need to consider for Oracle licensing. What are your migration options? We'll take a look at a customer case study. We'll also talk about how to plan for success. And Hardik is going to provide a demonstration on some of the tools to give you better insights to your existing databases and what options might be available for migration. And then we'll finalize everything with some additional information that you need to know in order to ensure your success in migration. Traditional on-premise database licensing can be complex. It can seem like a never-ending hole of legal jargon, core calculations, and usage analysis. Lack of understanding can halt even the most well-intentioned cloud migration efforts. So let's take a deeper look at some of those challenges that you can expect or that you may need to investigate further. And a lot of that centers around how databases are traditionally licensed. In particular, if we're looking at Oracle, it's a perpetual license. Along with that, you have an annual support subscription, usually at 22%, that accompanies that. When you're looking at license, you also need to consider, are you doing any type of virtualization among your systems? Because that can impact how core counts are taken into effect with your license structure. And on contracts, you need to understand, was this a single line item purchase or is it part of an enterprise license agreement? Which could have an impact on how you can migrate those databases in terms of BYOL or bring your own license. Quite often, people, when they have purchased their databases, may have purchased higher editions of the application, such as Enterprise Edition. And so you want to investigate some of the functionality that you currently have deployed. What do you have licensed? What do you have deployed? What is actually being utilized? And that will drive some of the decisions on what can be migrated to where and how. This will also lead to the infrastructure design as you move from a traditional on-premise or colo deployment to the cloud. And we also want to take a look at support. Now, one of the things that you'll find through today's discussion is AWS does a fantastic job of providing a level of support, but also that support fees are included in your license subscriptions, as opposed to if you're doing a bring your own license where you still have to continue paying for your traditional database annual support fees. Another key point that you want to take a look at along with the license is what are the database versions that you're moving. As an example, Oracle Database 11G Release 2 is moving into Oracle Sustaining Support come January 2021. So as you're migrating, this might be an opportunity, if you want to retain your Oracle flavor of database, to go ahead and move to a newer version, or it may be a key factor in deciding to migrate off of Oracle into maybe an Aurora or Postgres version of database on the cloud. When we take a look at the differences between bring your own license and license included on AWS as part of the migration strategy, there are some key things that you want to take a look at. For example, in the license included for the database editions, you have the ability to run either Standard Edition SC1 or Standard Edition 2, SC2, for Oracle. You also, for database updates, the software update license is embedded in your hourly price. So you're not having to pay with the license included the annual support fee to ensure that you're always on the latest, greatest version of that database. In addition to that, through AWS Premium Support, you can have a single point of contact for both Oracle and RDS service requests. Now, if you are going to take the approach of bring your own license, this is where you need to understand the impact of what edition you're on and what options that provides. So both the Standard Edition 1 and Standard Edition 2 are available to you, but also traditional standard edition and enterprise edition, dependent upon the configuration and services you're going to deploy to. In other words, if you're going to run your Oracle database on an EC2 instance, or if you're going to run it on Amazon RDS for Oracle, will depend upon which version you select. For the database updates, you should have software update license and support continuous from Oracle in an Oracle migration. This will allow you to continue to apply updates and new release versions to your instances. For support with the bring your own license, you will need to continue to utilize your Oracle support account and contact Oracle directly for Oracle database specific service requests. But if you're deploying this on Amazon RDS for Oracle, all RDS specific issues will be handled through the AWS Premium support. Now, the downside to that is you do get in a situation where you're in a multi-vendor support process for this type of implementation. You also want to be able to understand and classify your database application. And this is one of the most important, critical, and sometimes complex tasks of any cloud adoption process. When you're looking at migration, you need to understand what some of your options are. There is the concept of rehost, replatform, and re-architect. So rehost at its simplest form is literally a lift and shift of your existing database to run it on an EC2 instance or a compute services. This does reduce the constraints for which database edition you can run, and it fully supports the BYOL option that we talked about. But you do want to take into consideration how you had originally licensed your database. So there are considerations you need to take into account for the number of virtual cores that the application is going to be running on, which may put some constraints on your sizing. Replatforming gives you the ability to take full advantage of the managed database. So if you go back and look at all of the abilities and functions that Ravi had outlined for us, that makes it a very welcoming option for migration so that you can take advantage of AWS actually managing that RDS environment for you. You can still use BYOL and license included as your licensing options for replatform. But do remember the consideration for BYOL and any limitations that might apply for the exact database edition you might be able to utilize. Now, the benefit of replatform is you do have other options as Ravi walked through. So rather than having to stay on Oracle, you may choose to adopt Aurora instead. And there are migration tools, which we'll talk about later, that will help you in moving from your on-premise to the cloud or from moving to another database flavor. Now, re-architecting takes replatforming a step further. And this involves really taking full advantage of all that AWS has to offer, from cloud services and automation capabilities, being able to continue to support bring your own license or take full advantage of license included offerings that they have. Quite often, this means that you are moving off of one database platform to another, taking full advantage of those migration tools, and quite often utilize an infrastructure as service. And this really comes into play when you need to have highly available, highly reliable, and disaster recovery configurations for your database that you may not have had fully implemented when you're on an on-premise or a colo implementation. Just to circle back again for various options that you have with RDS in Amazon, you have the ability to choose from a wide variety of these options, whether you want to continue with your original flavor or, again, take advantage of some of the other database offerings that are available to you. Let's take a closer look at the AWS RDS for Oracle. Now, Ravi's already covered a lot of this already, but just some key things that we want to pull out of this is you have pre-configured parameters. There's an abundance of monitoring and metrics that are available for it, database event notifications, fast and predictable performance is very key. The backup and recovery that Ravi talked about earlier. And one of the key things that a lot of organizations look for is that push button scaling and support for multiple availability zones to ensure HA and HR configurations. Availability and reliability with connectivity and security, but probably one of the top considerations is all around the licensing. You can literally set this up as a pay-as-you-go. You're only paying for the services as they're being used. Now, you also do need to take into consideration what the database edition is that you're going to run and how that applies to what is available from a bring your own license or license included. So for Standard Edition 1 and Standard Edition 2, you have both options. For Standard Edition, you have the option of bring your own license, and Enterprise is bring your own license as well. You also need to understand your database and everything that is associated with it before you perform that migration. And there are some tools out there that will help you with this. So from the Oracle side of the house, there are a number of tools that we can take a look at that will give you a very good insights into what features you're utilizing within your Oracle database deployment, sizing information, details about the construct of the database itself, and what's actually being utilized. Some of these include the Oracle Export-Import utilities, which is best suited for small database sizes and generic data types. This is most often used for when you are actually performing the migration, along with Data Pump, which is the tool of choice for large amounts of data. You can also utilize SQL Loader, which is designed for large databases that have a limited number of objects associated with them. And then for discovery purposes, Oracle Materialized Views replication helps keep target tables in sync with source database. And while you're in the process of doing migration and keeping them in sync, and as I mentioned for discovery, Enterprise Manager will give you visibility into the database configuration itself. And we'll be demonstrating that a little later on. From the AWS side, you have the schema conversion tool. This will automatically convert source database schema and code objects to format compatible with a target database. In addition to that, there's the database migration service, which migrates the database to AWS quickly and securely with minimum downtime. And then also there is the workload qualification framework. This is an assessment that you can do to help plan your database in migration and will include instructions to convert Oracle workloads to AWS databases. Now let's take a look at a client use case where they are started with an Oracle-based application and leveraged AWS for not only saving money, but also improving performance and future-proofing their investment. So we'll take a look at the Florida State Board of Administration, where they saved over $500,000 by moving to Amazon Web Services. Florida State Board of Administration has set up a web-based myfrs.com application. This is a retirement service system for all employees and previous employees of the state of Florida to gain access to critical information about their retirement plans. The state was really looking at an on-premise implementation where they had to do a hardware refresh, which is very common in on-premise or colo environments. that was going to cost significant amount of money for them. In this case, about $250,000 that of hardware replacement cost over the next fiscal year. So they decided to use that as an opportunity to investigate moving to the cloud. And they looked at all of the key players that are in the market space and landed on AWS for a number of reasons. One, they are the most recognized and industry leader in cloud services, but also for the variety of database platforms that they support, as well as the cloud architecture and the ease of managing that. So as part of the solution, TekStream worked with them to highlight the cost savings that SBA would be able to recognize by migrating the Oracle infrastructure to the cloud. And we did this in a couple of stages that we'll go through. But at the end of the day, they were able to realize a 50% decrease in cost compared to their on-premise solution over a span of 5 years. And that was significant to them. So the first step was to perform a lift and shift and essentially take the Oracle on-premise app database and the applications associated with that and move it to the AWS. It was selected to utilize Amazon RDS Oracle with Bring Your Own License because their license support was nearing its renewal, but not quite there yet. So they wanted to take advantage of the investment that they already had. As we approached the time for their support renewal, the decision was then made to refactor that into Amazon Aurora and drop the Oracle license. So through this process, they were able to eliminate 500,000 of Oracle ARR support and maintenance fees. The backbone of success is hard work, determination, good planning, and perseverance. Mia Hamm had said that. So there are some steps that you need to go through in determining what can be migrated and understanding why to migrate those. So quite often you want to take a look at what makes the most amount of sense to migrate. Sometimes that could be custom database applications. And this is important because sometimes you may have database requirements from legacy applications that dictate what version of the database and what flavor of it is required. Whereas in custom database applications, you generally have a little more flexibility with that. You also want to consider development and non-production database and applications. This is a great way to get started and to start learning about the advantages that AWS provides. This can also be utilized for disaster recovery for database and applications as a good starting point. And then taking a look at back office applications and their supporting databases. Another key factor, like the state of Florida, will be, are you facing any hardware refresh? Are you facing support renewal where you need to make a decision if you're going to continue with that or look for a more economical solution? So there are reasons to move depending upon what those candidates are. And quite often it's to provide flexibility and to reduce expense and gain a more powerful alternative. You also may want to minimize your infrastructure costs and footprint. When you look at on-premise or a colo deployment of database, quite often you are sizing to your maximum expectation of capacity. So that impacts the database license, but it also impacts the physical hardware that you're going to run on, because you want to ensure that your hardware is to the size in order to support that maximum capacity. Whereas when you go to the cloud, capacity is something that can grow very quickly and very easily. And so you can grow as needed rather than having to look into a crystal ball and determine what you're going to need over the next year or 2 years. So it gives you a lot of flexibility, and it's a great way to reduce that overall cost and management of the resources. It also gives you great support for geographic deployments, for disaster recovery, or making sure that you have your systems distributed in the event of a critical error or failure in a particular data center or location. It also can help you to reduce application license, as we talked about, by basing it off of actual utilization rather than planning for high watermarks. And as we discussed, it reduces the associated cost of not just the hardware, but the maintenance of the hardware, everything that goes around it, the power, the resources for maintenance, and all of the hidden costs that are associated with maintaining either your own data center or colo data center. So when we think about migration, I use that term in a broad sense. We need to consider, are we going to migrate from one database type to another, or are we simply going to perform a lift and shift? And there are pros and cons to both. So when you're doing a migration or a refactoring, this could be an opportunity to change the supporting technologies. Maybe adopt things such as what Amazon RDS provides and take advantage of bring your own license or license included if you want to get out of an existing license contract. It also opens the door for other database options such as open source. You can modify your configurations to take full advantage of AWS services, as we talked about earlier, with on-demand scalability and high availability, high reliability, reliable configurations. And the AWS maintenance and care and feeding of that database is something that is highly sought after in the RDS options. And the reality is, at the end of the day, you can achieve greater value and optimization versus doing a simple lift and shift. Now, a lift and shift typically means that you're going to retain the same technology, but you're going to deploy it into an Amazon EC2 server instance. This can be less effort in actually moving it from your current deployment to the cloud, but it means that you're not taking full advantage of other options and capabilities. You can utilize auto scaling to start with a smaller footprint, but if you're doing a bring your own license with this, which is typically the case, you need to be cognizant of what your license impacts may be. You can also take advantage of hybrid cloud configurations, and there are self-managed EC2 and EBS environments to help you along the way. This is the fastest approach to the cloud, but might be a limiting factor for being able to take full advantage of everything that's available. However, it could be a good starting point if you want to explore cloud environments and what it brings to the table. And as we discussed in the Forta example, you can obviously migrate once you've moved to the cloud to take advantage of RDS and other solutions. You also need to understand the risks that may be associated with it. Now, a lot of times people think that moving to the cloud is going to introduce a large learning curve. In some regards, that may be true, but the reality is cloud adoption has been going on for quite a while. AWS has a wealth of experience and experts that they can bring to the table. There's also a very large community of service providers that can help you, whether it's doing all the work for you, doing some of the work, or just providing you guidance along the way. You have options to make that cloud adoption much easier. There are going to be times when you're doing a migration or a lift and shift that you uncover hurdles that you may not have thought about. And again, this is where good planning comes into play. And so for the first time that you do this, it may take a little bit longer than you expected. But as you move more and more of your applications and services to the cloud, you will see that your rate of return is much better. Security and access to applications and databases is definitely something you need to think about because you're going into a new infrastructure. There's new networking and security that needs to come into mind as you're making those decisions. Now, these are definitely things that you can plan for and accommodate, but you need to go through that pre-planning. And obviously, this is a good time to consider doing data cleansing and validation. Take a look at what you have and understand what actually needs to move. So it's very much like when you're moving from one house to another and you're ready to do a yard sale, get rid of what you don't need anymore and keep what's most important to you. So this could become an advantage so that you have clean data moving to the cloud. So as we looked at those risks, minimizing them really comes with having the proper planning and gaining the knowledge that you need in order to make that as efficient as possible. So we encourage you to reach out to AWS and experienced partners to get that guidance and training and full understanding of the services. You want to have an evaluation and planning to help you uncover any potential issues so that you can start looking at those in advance and planning around them. AWS certified support and compliance programs, really help you through understanding cloud security and things that might be different from a traditional implementation to one that's in the cloud, so that you have that insight as well. And understanding what the different pricing models are. So in some cases, you might be able to do reserved instances. In other situations, that may not be a good option for you, but you want to understand how that impacts and also compare it to what your traditional licensing would be if you take a bring your own license approach. And then you want to ensure that all of this discovery analysis is done before you start making a move. It will make things go a lot smoother and a lot faster for you. And part of that is to understand some of the tools that can help you gain those insights to ensure proper planning. And as an example of one of those, we're going to take a look at Oracle Enterprise Manager, which helps you to understand those Oracle databases. And Hardick's going to walk us through a quick demonstration and some of the things that it'll be able to bring to the table for you.
Now we'll take a few minutes to talk about some of the more advanced features of the Oracle database. We'll use some of the out-of-the-box utilities to display a typical Oracle Database Enterprise Edition deployment. What you see on your screen is a snapshot of a customer database who's on Enterprise Edition high-performance Oracle database. This customer started off as a 11G version customer who has hence upgraded. But along the way, as a part of the discovery, TekStream has discovered that this customer is not using most of the advanced features that ship with the Enterprise Edition. What you see on your screen is a lightweight version of Enterprise Manager. It's called Enterprise Manager Database Express. It is a free module that ships with Oracle Database, and it's very lightweight. It can be turned on as required. As a part of the discovery process, what TekStream recommends doing in addition to the schema conversion tool is to evaluate what the customer is actually using on their production systems. So for example, in this case, the customer had bought Enterprise Edition high performance Oracle database with the expectation that they would use some of the features like data guard or active data guard or advanced compression, advanced security features. What we will try to demonstrate here is when we go through some of the utilization audit, none of those features are in use. So in this example, if you see the active data guard, it's not been used at all. If we scroll down to some of the more popular uses around transparent data encryption, etc. While it is a very popular feature, not all customers do use that effectively. So in this case, the TDE has been used, but as you can see, the usage is very low. There have only been 4 instances of using TDE, and when we dive into the feature info, you can see that the table space count is just 1, and it seems like some sample database database table that was set up to use TDE. This just goes to show that some of these advanced features are not even being used. So this, in addition to the SCT, gives a very clear picture of what the customer is actually using. Most of our Enterprise Edition customers do not use the enterprise features at all. This makes a perfect case for this customer and many like them to make a transition to Oracle database on RDS. That will obviously make sure that the features that they need are already configured as a part of that database, but along the way they will also save a ton on the database licenses. There are other features that TekStream would leverage of Enterprise Manager as a part of the discovery process is to check some of the high water marks. How heavily is this database being utilized? Oftentimes we find that the database servers are oversized, meaning they're deployed on very high core count footprint, which basically means that they have to pay a lot of licenses. This discovery process allows us to demonstrate that not all of those core licenses are required, which in turn will also lead to additional savings for Oracle database licenses. This has just been a very high-level overview of the discovery process that TekStream provides as a part of the license overview. And these discovery processes have been very effective to make sure the customer is not overpaying for their Oracle database deployments.
So Troy, we're about to wrap things up. Can you tell our audience about the special offer you're making available?
Absolutely, Tom. So one of the things that TekStream is offering for our clients is a complimentary 60-minute migration consultation. This is going to help you to make sure that you're ready. We're going to do a readiness assessment. We're going to take a look at different migration patterns that might be available to you and what a potential AWS architectural design is going to be for your database migration, and then what that strategy will actually look like. You can get more information about this by going to https://resource.tekstream.com/AWS-migration-datasheet. And some of the benefits of going through migration is being able to do cost savings and really take advantage of those opportunities that are there to reduce your database licensing. Minimize your downtime, data loss, your customer impact, and risks that are associated with just generally maintaining a database. And a lot of this is achieved through some of the automation and capabilities that Ravi had gone through with us on the Amazon RDS services. Migration options to rehost, replatform, and re-architect. So there's more than one ways to achieve your presence in the cloud with your databases. And there are a couple of different ways you can start with that. And one of the things that we want to do is outline what is best specifically for you. And then understanding that there are ways that we can help you to offset this cost through AWS partner funding. So please reach out to us for that 60-minute migration consultation. And just to give you a little bit of background of TekStream and why we're able to bring that information to you, is TekStream's a 10-year-old company. We have been working in quite a number of different enterprise level applications and services. And our focus really is on helping our clients understand their software options, utilizing services to help them to deploy that as quickly and efficiently as possible, providing them with ongoing support specific to their services, and that includes managed services support. And when it's needed, being able to provide sourcing services for contractor full-time employees or assistants as you take ownership of this new environment, and being able to ensure that you have the appropriate staff on hand to address that or any other environment that you may have in your company. So with that, Tom, I'll pass it back to you.
Excellent. Thanks, Troy. Well, that's about all the time we have for today's webcast. I want to give a big thanks to our speakers, Ravi Madhabhushanam from AWS and Troy Allen and Hardik Desai from TekStream, for sharing their expertise and insights with us. And thanks especially to you, our viewers, for tuning in. Please be sure to check out the resources section on your console for links to some valuable AWS and TekStream resources. Also, if you have a question or comment about this webcast, just type it into the Q&A box in your console and press the submit button. We'll get back to you with an answer within a few days. For AWS, TekStream, and IDG, I'm Tom Schmidt.